Hi, it's me, Joyce, just talking, just singing, and coming to you in my mom's jaunty little felt hat from the 80s. But today is kind of a somber occasion for me because it's the 50th anniversary of my Pepere Cleophas Laviolette's passing. He passed on Monday, December 6th at 2 in the morning. 50 years ago. I was 16 years old, so do the math. Yeah, I'm 66, which all of you know. That's no secret. But my Pepere was 71 when he died, and I was talking to my brother the other day. He says, boy, we're talking about my dad who passed away at the age 71, and my Pepere is 71. He said, hey, sis, we're in the zone. Yeah, we are. So yeah, life is short, and we have to make the most of it, that's for sure. And my grandfather did make the most of his life. He was a really incredible person. I want to talk about him today. He was born in 1900, July 10th, in Ottawa, actually in Hull, Quebec, and he had many careers. Back then, you didn't go to school for very long. At the age of 10, he was already working, had his first job with Lauren Green. I don't know if you remember Lauren Green of Bonanza. Sunday night, 8 o'clock on TV. We used to watch Bonanza. But yeah, Lauren Green's father had a butcher shop in Ottawa, and my grandfather was an apprentice sausage maker. And he was 10 years old. He said, well, I got a job, now I can smoke. So that's when he started smoking. Anyway, but my grandfather, actually I will tell you, his first job was not that. He was still in school. He was just a little guy, little kid. I don't know if he was 8 years old or 7 years old or whatever, but this is a story to tell, because if anyone did this nowadays, child services would be brought in, that's for sure. He every summer, the hot air balloons would come to Ottawa, the beautiful big balloons, and they'd fly. They're still beautiful, the hot air balloons. Get more creative every year. They're not so round anymore. They're all different shapes. But back then they used hydrogen to fill those balloons, and it's quite volatile, as we know, if anybody remembers the Hindenburg. Anyway, no one living remembers the Hindenburg, but historically you would remember, the humanity, terrible disaster. But my grandfather was given a job during the summer. He would, before they, I don't know if it's while they were, I don't know if you can breathe hydrogen gas, but it was his job to crawl inside the balloon with a wet rag, okay, and put out any sparks he would see in the balloon, inside the balloon, so it wouldn't blow up. Quite a job for a little guy, eh? It's right up there with sending kids down chimneys, but yeah, my grandfather did that. And he was an apprentice sausage maker at the age of 13, but he had many jobs. He was also the chef, the cook, not the chef. He was a cook on the GB Green side paddler. It was you can still find that picture of the GB Green online if you ever want to look it up. He said, the little tiny galley kitchens, not very big at all. Just one guy can move around in there. And he used to, whenever he cooked, he would say, yeah, just like on the GB Green, you have to, you dirty a dish, you have to wash a dish, because there's no room for dirty dishes. And I remember him always, keeping a very clean kitchen. Dirty a dish, you wash a dish. And of course, he used to, because he was an apprentice sausage maker, he would make, I remember his meat grinder, those old metal meat grinders, and he'd fasten that to the kitchen table and grind his meat to make his head cheese and different things he used to make at home, and it was really quite, I never liked that head cheese. It looked weird because of the jelly and stuff, but he made apparently excellent head cheese. But he was never a slouch. He also worked as a cook in a lumber camp when he was younger. I used to say, you know how we clean the knives, because he'd say we go down to the beach, we take the knives, we stick them in the sand and pull them out, and we'd have a clean knife. These little gems like that he taught us. Also, and it's funny, my daughter-in-law was sort of astounded. I was at her place a few weeks ago, and of course the carton of milk was finished, and I rinsed it out, and then I started to fold it up and make it into a little tight, little compact, piece. Like, instead of being this big, it went down to a little tiny piece like that. And she said, "You do that here?" I said, "Yeah, my grandfather taught me how to do that in the 60s. I said, he, was to make it smaller, because we had one little garbage can at the end of the laneway, and we didn't want to have a whole pile of garbage, so we made our garbage small." I think that's what they call today reducing. Okay. And she said, "Oh, I only saw people do that in Korea. I never saw people do that here." I said, "Well, I do it." My grandfather also used to have a ball of string. Anything came off a package, because back in our day we had meat that came in pink butcher paper, and it was wrapped in string. That string was kept. Elastics were kept. There's a big ball of elastics, a big ball of string. If we needed elastic or some string, we went there. Paper bags were always folded and kept aside. Shopping bags were reused. We did reuse and recycle back in the 60s. It was only when we started all the plastic stuff, that it got bad. Anyway, back to my grandfather. One job he had was in 1918, specifically. He was working in Trenton at a munitions plant. And of course, it's the First World War, and that was supposed to be the war to end all wars, but it didn't. But I don't know if anybody knows about the Trenton munitions factory explosion that happened in 1918. Got a little thing about it here that I can just read it. It was Thanksgiving Day in 1918, and my grandfather was working in that plant that day. He was working. The British chemical plant was the largest munitions plant in the Commonwealth, and the explosion was so large it blew out most of the windows within the city. They made TNT. They also worked with nitroglycerin, and even though they've said that there were no casualties, well, there were, because my grandfather was injured very badly. I know there's all kinds of pictures online you can see of the explosions, the Trenton munitions plant explosion of 1918. It's historical. It's very interesting. But my grandfather was 18 years of age, working in this munitions plant, and when it blew, his left leg was very, very injured, to the point where the doctors were going to amputate it. And of course, my grandfather used to say, yeah, back in those days they used to call the doctors sawbones, because when they were, when they had an injury that they couldn't fix, they just cut the limb off, and especially in the field for the soldiers, a lot of soldiers came back with no arms, no legs, it was brutal. And back in the First World War, they were using something horrible. It's called mustard gas, which would basically take the skin off you, burn the skin right off you. It was a horrible thing. Mustard gas. Evil weapon. So when the doctors saw my grandfather's leg, they thought, you know what? They were just really starting to do skin grafting back then. It was really not a big deal. Like, it wasn't sophisticated. They were perfecting it, or started to use it. Excuse me. So they used my grandfather to do skin grafts on his leg, so that they could save his leg. He's an 18-year-old young man, and to have his leg amputated would have been the end of his life. He wouldn't have been able to work. So they were able to save his leg. And I remember my Pepere, he'd roll up his pant legs and he'd tell the story. And he said, "Look at my leg. You see how it's white? Feel that leg." It was always very white. It never tanned. He said, "Never tans." and I would feel his leg, and it was kind of cold. The circulation wasn't as good as it was in the other leg. The color was not as good. It was kind of pale white. He said, "But you know what? Those doctors saved my leg." But because of that, my grandfather was not allowed. Wasn't able to. He didn't fight in the Second World War. But what he did in the Second World War was interesting. He was with the RCMP in Division A, which was the intelligence division, and he used to travel between Ottawa and New York down to the League of Nations, and work there. And I remember my grandfather saying, "Silence is golden. Be a lone wolf." No, I talk a lot. But he'd say, "Silence is golden." So he was, he was a very big secrets guy. Never divulged anything. But he did give me a book, which I passed along to my son, which was a little tiny red book, a manual, and in it had all the different German phrases, like common German phrases, and road signs and different things that when they were sending the troops to land in Germany and to go undercover, they would have this book, this little manual, so they could access phrases and know what the signs were along the roads, everything, like that kind of thing, or with the soldiers dropped in there to do tactical work. Anyway, that's what my grandfather did during the Second World War. But between Trenton and the Second World War, my grandfather during the 1920s, he had some relatives in Detroit. Yeah, and we had relatives there. And I don't know, he was, I remember him saying that he would deliver, we'll say deliver, Canadian Club from Windsor and run, did I say run? No. Float it across the Lake St. Clair over to Detroit, and they used to deliver Canadian Club, because I think we were still drinking Canadian Club here in Canada. We didn't have the same we didn't have the same rules here regarding liquor that they had in the States. Yeah, and they had that really awful 2% beer. I forget what it was, really like watery beer. So they needed some of our good beer here too from here. Anyway, that he did that kind of thing. But my grandfather was always a very interesting man, and he said, he was a great cook, because he cooked in those, on the lumber camp and on the GB Green. And back to the day that he passed away, my brother and I were there. It was December 5th on the Sunday night, and he invited us both for dinner, and he made us his famous porcupine balls, which were meatballs with rice in them. And so when they went in the oven, all the rice would stick out like a porcupine, And he also used to make this beautiful dish he used to call a Peru. And he used to make us lots of wonderful treats. But this particular night was his famous porcupine balls. And my mother called, and I come from a mixed background, and Christian and Jewish. And my mother called, and she says, "Dad, the kids have got to come home now, because we've got to decorate the tree." It was December 5th. We could have, back then you didn't do that until maybe 2 weeks before Christmas, if that. But oh no, she had to have the Christmas tree done that night. And so Pepere said, "Oh, can't the kids stay longer, Irene? Can't they just stay longer?" People sometimes know when they're going to go, Anyway. So she said, "Nope, they got to come home now." So he gave us a hug, sent us home, and then we got the call in the middle of the night, December 6th, around 2 a.m. And I remember being woken up from my bed. Pepere had passed away. He had a blood clot in his lung that went to his heart. And there you go. And so, it's these things that you remember. And I love my grandfather. He used to sit at the table with us, and he used to drum, because he used to tell us he had his grandmother was from Maniwaki, and the understanding that she was native, she was indigenous. He used to say, he used to take his flat carpenter pencil, and he used to draw with it and make an Indian head. I'll say Indian. This is how he put it. And with the feathers, the beautiful feathered headdress. And then he'd start to chant, he said, this is what we did around the fire. This is how we sang around the fire. And it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. Yeah. I also remember my grandfather rolling his cigarettes in those machines, taking his little razor blade and cutting those cigarettes up. Export A tobacco there with the Macintosh guy on it, the Scottish guy. And so many wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things. And I used to say sorry all the time. I still do. And he used to say, Joyce, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a little poem I learned during the war. It says, don't spend your time saying sorry. Laugh at yourself instead. Life's too short to worry. You'll be a hell of a long time dead. And I'll end my little story about my grandfather there. I can probably talk about him again in one of these vlogs. But Pepere, I love you. I miss you so much. And of course, I always sing a song. So I'm going to sing this song, When Did You Leave Heaven? I like this song. When did you leave heaven? How could they let you go? How's everything in heaven? I'd like to know. Why did you trade heaven for all these earthly things? Where did you hide your halo? Where did you leave your wings? Have they missed you? Can you get back in if I kissed you? Would it be a sin? I am only human, but you are so divine. When did you leave heaven? Angel mine. I just want to end this this vlog, which is gone a little bit, but it's about my grandfather. I can't make it too short. I have another grandfather who passed away when he was 59. He was also born in 1900. Came over as one of Dr. Barnardo's children as a homeboy and went to work on a French-Canadian farm. He came from Brighton. His father died. He was a photographer and died very young at the age of 42. An accident, on-the-job accident. Worked for Scotland Yard. Samuel Aldrich. But my Pepere, Frank, ended up on a French-Canadian farm. And they had a lot of kids. 8 kids. And I'm just thinking of the selfishness of a lot of people nowadays who don't want to go the extra mile. And I will say the extra mile to do their job, to go to work, no matter what it is. My grandfather, my Pepere Frank, used to ride his bicycle. I know he used to ride his bicycle up there. No, he used to ride his bicycle from the Glebe in Ottawa to Borden Farms where he worked, and that was a long haul, but he did that to support his family. And all the things my grandfather did, to support his family, the hard work. And people nowadays A lot of you hardworking people. I see them all around me all the time. But you hear stories. You think, when you have a family, you gotta sacrifice. You gotta make sacrifices, no matter what. Anyway, that's my last word. No, not quite. The last words are 42, and that could be the answer to all the questions in the universe. So have a wonderful day, and Hanukkah is over as of tonight. It's almost sunset, so I'll be going to put all the Hanukkah decorations away. And to those of you who are celebrating the next holiday of the season, which is Christmas, Merry Christmas to you. May you have a wonderful time, safe time. Stay safe, all of you out there. Okay, thank you so much, and take care of yourselves and your families.